You may have heard of the concept of white privilege, and this is very important, especially if you live in a Western society where they have multiculturalism and you have people of all races intermingling and coexisting in the same society. This is a very important phrase to understand. So in this video, we're going to take a look at the concept of white privilege, what it means, how it's applied, and how it impacts society, especially non-white people in society. Now, it says here white privilege, or sometimes referred to, right, white privilege, or sometimes referred to as white skin privilege, is when power is taken for granted. Now, let's pause here for a minute and begin to understand what this means. When power is taken for granted. Now, when we say power, we're talking about political power. We're talking about societal, right? This is societal power. We're talking about also economic power, right? We're talking about economic power as well. And it could be other types of power. It could be also religious power. It could be cultural power, and so forth. So when power is taken for granted, and advantages, benefits, and opportunities are given or received as a result of being a white person, right? So again, let's take a look at this closely, because the requirement here, let's highlight this, is white, right, skin. That's the requirement, nothing else. It's not based on education, it's not based on accomplishments, there's no merit here. The only requirement of getting the power and getting the advantages, the benefits, and opportunities is this right here, white skin. That's white privilege right there, right? So doors open, right? So doors open for white people, essentially, because of their skin color, right? So the skin color becomes a passport, so to speak. It becomes a passport that opens doors for them, and they can walk through those doors without actually experiencing the difficulties and the barriers that non-white people face in society. This is white privilege. Let's take a look at this again, because this is a very important concept to understand, and to understand how it impacts people that are not white. Once again, it says white privilege or white skin privilege is when power, let's get rid of this here and take this again. So it says here white privilege or white skin privilege is when power, right, power is taken for granted. Now this word is very important, granted, right, because you don't have to do anything to get the power. You are just born and the power just comes on your laps. That's what it is essentially, right? So because it did not work for the power, because there was no effort to gain the power, it is taken for granted. And you assume that that's the way life is, right? As a white person, you assume that that's the way life is, and life is very easy for you, for the most part, going through society. Because the society is dominated by people with white skin color. Right, this is very important to understand. So because of the white skin color, advantages are there, benefits are there, and opportunities are there. Right, you go into a job interview, well, I mean, the people interviewing you for the most part are people of the same color. And so there's a connection right there, right? So opportunities and all of these things are given or received as a result of being a white person. Then it goes on to say, white persons therefore have more privileges in all sense of the word. So economic, right, privileges, political privileges, educational, right, privileges as well, societal privileges, and so forth. Right, so it says here, white persons therefore have more privileges than non-white people in the same or similar economic or social categories. And this is really white privilege. They have more privileges because of their skin color. Now, don't forget, now the important point here is not earned. The privileges we are talking about, the benefits we are talking about, the advantages we are talking about are not earned, right? They are given as a result of the skin color. They are not earned. They didn't work for it. They've done nothing to really get those privileges other than their skin color. And that is what we mean by white privilege. And because of this skin color, then a lot of barriers are broken, or there are no barriers. Employment is not an issue. They can pass through traffic sometimes, in terms of sometimes they can go through, certain situations without being checked. Sometimes they are given privileges in a retail store, for example. They are not watched closely in the retail store, for example, because they have the white privilege, and there are stereotypes associated with that as well. This is white privilege, right? And so when we talk about white privilege in society, then we are talking about privileges, we're talking about advantages, benefits, opportunities in all categories: economic, political, educational, societal, cultural, and so forth, that are not earned but given and taken for granted as a result of a person's skin, in this case, white skin. So this is the concept of white privilege.